Murphy's Comedy Club, Businessmen, Ullian Pipes, and Donald Trump. Episode 170. I am Rod Murphy, and this is Growing Up Poor in Irish Boston, a series of my 1950s era Irish and Boston songs, history, jokes, and stories, and never let the truth interfere with a good story. Jeff Bezos of Amazon was interviewing to hire a manager for a large Amazon division. He quickly devised a test for choosing the best candidate. Bezos simply asked each applicant this question: what is 2 plus 2? The first interviewee was a journalist. His answer was 22. The second was a social worker. She said, I don't know the answer, but I'm very glad that we had the opportunity to discuss it. The third applicant was an engineer. He pulled out a slide rule and came up with an answer. Somewhere between 3.99 and 4.001. Next came an attorney. He stated that in the case of Jenkins versus Department of Treasury, 2 plus 2 was proven to be 4. Finally, the businessman interviewed Patty Murphy. When Bezos asked what 2 plus 2 was, Patty got up from his chair, went over to the door, closed it, came back and sat down. Leaning across the desk, Patty whispered to Bezos, how much do you want it to be? Patty Murphy got the job. Two businessmen in Florida were sitting down for a break in their soon-to-be new store. As of yet, the store wasn't ready, with only a few shelves set up. One said to the other, I'll bet any minute now some nosy senior citizen is going to walk by, put his face in the window, and ask what we were selling. Excuse me. No sooner were the words out of his mouth when, sure enough, my Aunt Nellie Murphy walked to the window, had a peek in, and in a soft voice asked, what are you selling here? One of the men replied sarcastically, we're selling assholes. Without skipping a beat, Nellie said, you must be doing really well, only 2 left. Okay, the Ullian pipes are the Irish bagpipes that feed air to the pipes by the piper squeezing a small bag under his arm, like that, into the bags, as our cousins, the Scots pipers, do. An Irish Ullian piper told this story. I play many gigs. Recently, I was asked by a funeral director to play at a graveside service for a homeless veteran named Putsy O'Mara. Because Putsy had asked for a piper before he died. Putsy had no family or friends, so the funeral service was to be at a free veteran cemetery in the Berkshires. As I was not familiar with the Berkshires backwoods, I got lost. I finally arrived an hour late and saw the undertaker, Digger Odell, and the hearse had already left. There were only the diggers and the crew left, and they were eating lunch. I felt bad and apologized to the men for being late. I went to the side of the grave and looked down, and the vault lid was already in place. I didn't know what else to do, so I started to play. The workers put down their lunches and began to gather around. I played out my heart and soul for old Putsy. With no family or friends, I played like I'd never played before for this homeless veteran. And as I played Amazing Grace, the workers began to weep. They wept, I wept, we all wept together. When I finished, I packed up my pipes and started for my car. Although my head hung low, my heart was full. As I opened the door to my car, I heard one of the workers say, I never seen nothing like that before. In all my 20 years, I've been putting in septic tanks. Patty Murphy's cousin, Okie O'Connor, was in bed, close to death. He suddenly smelled the aroma of his favorite chocolate chip cookies wafting up the stairs. He gathered his remaining strength and lifted himself from the bed, leaning against the wall. Okie slowly made his way out of the bedroom and with even greater effort forced himself down the stairs, gripping the railing with both hands. With labored breath, he leaned against the doorframe, gazing into the kitchen. Were it not for death's agony, he would have thought himself already in heaven. There, spread out upon newspapers on the kitchen table, were literally hundreds of his favorite chocolate chip cookies. Was it heaven? Or was it one final act of heroic love from O'Connor's devoted wife, Maureen, seeing to it that he left this world a happy man? Mustering one great final effort, he threw himself toward the table, landing on his knees in a rumpled mess. His parched lips parted. The wondrous taste of the cookie was almost in his mouth, seemingly, bringing him back to life. Okie's aged and withered hand shakingly made its way to a cookie at the edge of the table, when it was suddenly smacked with a spatula by his wife, Maureen. "Stay out of those," she said. "They're for the funeral." Sean and Kevin were great friends, and they were both card players. But Kevin was having an affair with Sean's wife, Mary. Mary got a phone call one night from Sean during one of Kevin's visits. She pantomimed to Kevin that the call was from Sean. After the call, nervously, Kevin jumped out of bed trying to find his pants. Mary says, "Don't worry, Sean's not coming home soon. He's playing cards with you." Patty Murphy's neighbor, Mildred, was the St. Patrick's Church gossip and self-appointed monitor of the church's morals. She continually stuck her nose into other parishioners' business. Most parishioners did not approve of her nosy activity, but feared her enough to maintain their silence. She made a big mistake, however, when she accused Frank, a new parishioner, of being an alcoholic after she saw his old pickup parked in front of Hennessy's pub one evening. This happened after Mass one Sunday, when Mildred accused Frank of being a drunk in front of several other parishioners. Frank, a man of few words, stared at her for a moment and just turned and walked away. He didn't explain, he didn't defend or deny. He said nothing. Later that evening, Frank quietly parked his pickup truck in front of Mildred's house. He walked home and left it there all night. And here are two non-Irish jokes for you. Thomas, a Polish man, after living in Boston for a couple of years, met and married an American girl. His English was far from perfect, but the couple got along well. One day, though, Thomas rushed into Attorney Mickey Heffernan's office and asked if he could arrange a quick divorce for him and his wife. Heffernan explained that the speed of getting a divorce would depend on the circumstances and asked these questions. Heffernan said, "Have you any grounds?" Thomas said, "An acre and a half, and a nice 3-bedroom house." Heffernan then asked, "No, I mean, what is the foundation of the case?" Thomas said, "It's made of concrete, bricks, and mortar." Heffernan then asked, Does either of you have a real grudge?" Thomas answered, "No, we have a carport and don't need a grudge." Heffernan asked, "I mean, what are your relations like?" Thomas answered, "All my relations live in Poland." Attorney Heffernan then asked, "Is there any infidelity in your marriage?" Thomas replied, "Yes. We have a high-fidelity stereo set, a DVD player with a 6.1 sound." Heffernan then asked, "No, I mean, does your wife beat you up?" Thomas then answered, "No, I'm always up before her." Then Attorney Heffernan asked, "Why do you want this divorce?" Thomas said, "She's going to kill me." Heffernan replied, "What makes you think that?" Thomas said, "I got proof." The attorney asked, "What kind of proof?" Thomas said, She's going to poison me. She bought a bottle at the drugstore. I read the label. It says Polish remover. Okay. And now, in this election year 2026, here is the required Trump joke. President Donald Trump and two friends, a rabbi and a Hindu holy man, had car trouble in the boondocks. They found a farmhouse late that night and asked the farmer if he could put them up for the night. The farmer said, "I only have room for two to sleep, so one of you must sleep in the barn." "No problem," said the rabbi. "My people wandered in the desert for 40 years. I am humble enough to sleep in the barn for an evening." With that, he departed to the barn, and the others bedded down for the night. Moments later, a knock was heard at the door. The farmer opened the door. There stood the rabbi. "What's wrong?" asked the farmer. The rabbi replied, "I'm grateful to you, but I can't sleep in that barn. There's a pig in the barn, and my faith believes them to be unclean animals." His Hindu friend agreed to swap places with him. But a few minutes later, the scene reoccurs. After another knock on the door, "What's wrong now?" the farmer asked the Hindu holy man. So he says, "I too am grateful for your hospitality, but there's a cow in the barn, and in my country, cows are considered sacred. I can't sleep on a cow's holy ground." So that left only the Donald to make the change. So President Trump grumbled a little and complained, but he went out to the barn. Moments later, there was another knock on the farmer's door. Frustrated and tired, the farmer opens the door, and there stood the pig and the cow. This is Rod Murphy. Thank you for viewing or listening to my YouTube and podcast episodes. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed them, please hit the subscribe button. It does not cost you anything, and it helps me to grow my audience. Again, my thanks. Note, some of my viewers and listeners have asked how they could comment on my episodes. There is a note at the top of each episode. It's called "Send Us a Text." Click that, and you would be able to comment. Also, Farmer Redhead at protonmail.com is my podcast email if you would like to contact me. So it's Farmer Redhead. I used to have red hair. Farmer Redhead, Farmer Redhead at proton, Proton, mail.com is my podcast email. Thank you.